Hi, this is David Means, and you're listening to the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Surely You Can't Be Serious podcast, special edition, 5 Minutes of Fire. We are here talking about the lyrics of We Didn't Start the Fire by Billy Joel. We're covering only 5 minutes at a time, which is about the length of the song, so it works out kind of nicely. So please join us as we dive into some new lyrics today.
All right, guys, so here are the topics that we're going to be covering today. Mafia.
Hula hoops.
Castro.
Mafia, hula hoops, Castro.
Okay, Jason, what is the Mafia?
Okay, so this has to be the story surrounding the 1959 La Cosa Nostra mob boss, Vito Genovese. This guy was convicted of conspiracy to violate narcotics law and sentenced to 15 years in prison in 1959. Genovese was one of these guys that would continue to operate his organized crime group from prison. Genovese rose to power during Prohibition as an enforcer. Genovese and his associate Lucky Luciano took part in the Castellammarese War, which was the war for the control of New York, and it helped shape the rise of the mafia and organized crime in the United States. He also helped expand the heroin trade internationally. This is a tale of blood, murder, cash, drugs, mob hits, the works. Died of a heart attack in Springfield, Missouri prison, 1969. D, what can you tell me about hula hoops?
Okay, Jason, so as it turns out, hoops have been used by children as toys for hundreds of years, dating back to 500 BC in Greece.
Wow.
Yeah, but something happened in the 50s that brought them to a new light. Turns out that there were a couple of Americans driving through Australia. They happened to see these children playing with hoops, except they weren't rolling them on the ground, which was the normal use for the hoop. They were spinning them around their waist. There was an Australian teacher who had given the kids a game to try to keep the hoops from falling to the ground as a way of exercise. Eventually, this idea got to Whammo, the toy company.
Yeah.
And of course, they weren't the only ones who were trying to develop the hoop, but the bamboo hoops were selling out in Australia. So they realized, hey, we should try to make these out of plastic. It's more readily available. They did that. Several other game companies tried to do the same thing, but it really came down to who had the best name as to which of these hoops took off. And because it looked like the children were doing the hula, the Hawaiian dance, whenever they would spin these hoops, they gave it the name hula hoop, and Whammo won that contest. They became a huge fad in 1959, continued to be a fad on through the 70s, kind of died out by 1980, but I have hula hoops at my house that my kids use.
We had hula hoops, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, tell me about Castro.
Okay, Fidel Castro was a Cuban revolutionary and politician who was the leader of Cuba from 1959 to 2008. That takes us from the Eisenhower administration through G.W. Bush. Pretty incredible.
Yep.
Served as Prime Minister of Cuba from 1959 to 1976, sort of self-appointed him President of Cuba from 1976 to 2008, known for his famous beard, his cigar, and his baseball pitches.
I thought you were going to say his army uniform. I did not know that he was famous for his baseball pitches.
He was almost drafted as a Major League Baseball pitcher. How the world would have changed if that would have happened. Originally seen as a hero for overthrowing the dictator Batista, he was actually interviewed by Ed Sullivan. Few people have been as idolized or as hated as Fidel Castro. In October of 1962, Soviet missiles were brought to Cuba, creating the Cuban Missile Crisis, which put us close to World War III. The U.S. put an economic embargo on him, but Castro did manage to provide health care and education to his entire country. His opponents saw that, though, as Cuba sort of being an island prison. The economy is terrible. He left office in 2008, and he died in 2016 at the age of 90.
I'm just glad we've got Cuban cigars again. Okay, guys, that does it for today's episode. Join us next time for 5 Minutes of Fire.